Very much indeed. What a stench there is around key figures in British society. Let's speak to Gloria Allred, a US women's rights lawyer who has represented many of Jeffrey Epstein's victims. She's told the BBC that numerous survivors' names have been disclosed in the latest release, including some who had not been previously identified publicly. Gloria, thank you very much for coming on the programme. What have you been hearing from your clients about the release of these documents?
Well, there was a large dump on Friday of more than 3 million files. And I will say it was a disaster. And the reason is many of my clients who are survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and some of Ms. Maxwell have for years been known as Jane Does. Their names have not been revealed to anyone except, of course, my legal team for my clients, and for others to their legal teams, and also to the Department of Justice. And they were assured anonymity. And in fact, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, said that the reason that many of the files were not released by December 19th, which was required by the Epstein Files Transparency Act, was that they wanted to protect the victims and make sure that their names and so forth were not revealed when the public dump was made of the files. But what happened on Friday is many of our clients' names were not redacted and were made public. Some of their photos were made public. Some of their emails, texts, direct messages, and other forms of electronic communication, and some of the evidence that was written by them was made public. And even where sometimes there was a black line to redact their name, you could still read their name under the black line. It was at best incompetent, and at worst, maybe a cover-up, maybe an attempt to punish survivors for having gone to Congress and gotten the bill passed into law to release all the files, which is something the administration was against and fought against, but ultimately lost that battle. And now it seems that some of the sexual predators are being protected, not the survivors, who are being shamed and humiliated, their reputation sometimes harmed, and it's so unfair to them. They have been denied justice for so many years, and now it seems like the predators are being protected, and they are not. And once again, they have been denied justice. Some of what should have been revealed, for example, why Jeffrey Epstein got a sweetheart deal in 2008 and only went to jail for 13 months. Instead of being indicted for felonies by the United States Attorney on many felonies that were in a draft indictment by the federal government, but ultimately it was sent to the state government. Yeah. Why there was that sweetheart deal, that should have been revealed under this act, the internal communications of the Department of Justice.
I don't have long, but I just want to get to a couple of really important issues. First and foremost, there's a suggestion that Peter Mandelson will be issued with a summons by the Oversight Committee to give evidence. I don't know whether he'll travel, but what sort of gaps could he fill in if he were to give evidence to that committee?
Well, Lord Mandelson had been, I'm going to call it, a friend of Jeffrey Epstein, in the same way that, or in a similar way that, of course, the President of the United States, President Trump, before he was president, was called a friend by Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently, there were also some financial dealings with Lord Mandelson, and we always want to follow the money. And that hasn't been done enough yet. I know the Congress is looking into the trail of money, how this whole sex trafficking of underage girls was financed, involving underage girls and some adult females from all over the world. I think he could fill in some of those gaps if he knows them. I don't know what he knows about it. I know there was a financial loan reportedly to his spouse.
Right.
I don't know what other financial
There is a second woman alleging that Epstein sent her to the UK to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. And there's also a suggestion in one of the emails that he would bring with him to Buckingham Palace a Russian girl, a beautiful Russian girl. Do you know anything about this second victim? This is the first we've heard of her. And do you know how many of these young women were Russian? Because obviously there is a security implication to that.
Well, I don't know who that person is. That person was not one of my clients. I only know about what my clients have told me, and of course I can't reveal that because it's attorney-client confidential communication. Were there other Russian women involved or manipulated or taken advantage of or used and abused in some way? I'm sure she's not the only one, but I don't know because I don't know all of the other attorneys' clients, who they are, and so I really can't speak to that. But the idea that she could have some kind of privacy with Andrew, formerly known as Prince, or anyone else at Buckingham Palace is really disturbing. Yeah. And of course, again, former Prince Andrew has a lot to account for, and apparently he's not willing to speak to the Congressional Committee, or at least he hasn't said he's willing. And despite my public calls for him to speak to law enforcement, FBI, Homeland Security, or anyone else over the years, and despite an actual U.S. attorney urging some years ago, U.S. Attorney Berman urging publicly some years ago that he speak to law enforcement. He's also declined.
But it seems that the British government is delegating the investigation here to the DOJ and to the Oversight Committee, which is understandable because they have the documents. But I'm wondering if we now know enough that, in fact, separate to a cabinet secretary investigating what Peter Mandelson might have shared with Jeffrey Epstein, we should have a criminal inquiry or a criminal investigation in Britain, which American prosecutors and lawyers like yourself might take part in.
Well, let me just say this. The Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Blanche, has clearly said he doesn't think there's sufficient evidence for any prosecutions. So that would be in the United States. Would they do a criminal investigation after the Deputy Attorney General has said there's not enough evidence? He doesn't seem to be inclined to do any investigation anymore if he's not going to do any prosecutions. That's just what I think. By the way, I think the UK has done a much better job with all of this than the United States.
Why do you say that? Because when I look at the A-listers, I look at the A-listers who've paid a price. Ghislaine Maxwell, who went to prison, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, who lost his titles, Lord Mandelson, who lost his job and maybe his peerage. They're all British. What does that say about the British establishment and the American attitude to what they've discovered about American high-profile figures?
Well, of course, there are a lot of rich, powerful, famous figures from the financial world, the academic world, the business world, sometimes the entertainment world. There's just all kinds of people that were drawn into Jeffrey Epstein and Ms. Maxwell's circle. Women in many ways, vulnerable young women, often underage girls, were, I think, used as bait to draw some of these men in, and with promises, for example, to some of the women of helping them with their education, and they had no idea what they were getting into. Anyway, the point is this: they're the ones getting protected, these famous men. The president at one point said he doesn't want any of these men to be hurt. I think he's given the marching orders to Todd Blanche. who, by the way, we know was formerly the president's criminal defense attorney. And
do you still see do you see any implication in what we've learned?
I've made up my mind. Don't confuse me with a facts type of situation.
Well, on that issue, just on that issue, Gloria, do you think there are any implications for the president in what has been released in this latest dump of documents?
Well, I haven't had a chance to look at the alleged more than 1,000 references to President Trump in here, in the files. But in addition, there's an allegation by some reporters that there was some information put out about the president, and then within 20 minutes, it's suddenly removed from the files. So I don't know there was a point that where his photo was put out, but it was redacted. I don't know. I have no confidence in this. We're not seeing all the files. We can't see everything in context. We're only seeing some things. What we're seeing is not good.
No.
By the way, the New York Times just reported yesterday, there was a photo of naked young girls that was put out on the Department of Justice webpage. Some of them may have been teenagers. Some of them may be under the age of 18. Some of them may be adult females. The New York Times told the Department of Justice, and then they took it off. But how can, if some of these young women were victims and now they're out there, millions of people have seen it while I was out there, they're naked. That is so insulting and wrong and disgusting for the Department of Justice to have put that out there. I'm enraged over the treatment of survivors in this film.
Gloria Allred, grateful for your time. Thank you very much indeed. Let's pick up some of that with